Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm the Dead Man, and today is what tonight would be what would normally be my show, The Red Hour, but due to technical difficulties, I wasn't able to do my random episode review. So instead, I've decided to do my review for Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 4, A Space Adventure Hour. Sorry about that. I had to grab uh, my glasses. So I'm gonna review the episode just like I would any other episode on the regular uh, Red Hour show. And if anybody shows up in the chat, I will explain what's going on to them. My glasses keep fogging up. So basically, it starts off. It's like a weird retro looking bridge, and Paul Wesley is there, but everybody's kind of. The bridge has like buttons and levers, and they have different uniforms, and it's basically like a spoof on the original series. And I forget what they call the. I forget what they called it, but it's basically like a TV show, and Paul Wesley is doing like a over the top impression of Kirk, which I had a problem with. It seemed like they were more making fun of Trek than they were like sort of spoofing on Trek. You know, Galaxy Quest did a spoof on Trek, and that was fine, but it was in Loving Spirit, and this just kind of seemed uh, like they were just wanting to shit on the old show. And you know, they've said multiple times that we can't make the Enterprise look like the Enterprise from the 60s because of the cardboard sets and plywood and the use of plywood and stuff like that. And it's like the Enterprise was shown on TNG. The original Enterprise from the 60s was shown on TNG. No problem there. Deep Space Nine, no problem there. And then they showed the Defiant on Enterprise. No problem there. I think they're just not creative enough to show it as we see it. And people make excuses. Oh, well, you know, this is it's just a visual reboot. It's this is what it really looked like. It's just they didn't have the budget back then to do it. Or what if all the captain's logs ended up in Roddenberry's backyard, and he wasn't able to clearly interpret it correctly. Excuses. People make excuses for Kurtzman Trek and J.J. Abrams Trek all of the time, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the excuses. I'm sick of like having to like come up with headcanon to make shit fit, and and then today I even was called early yesterday, I think I was called that I'm not a fan because I didn't like this episode. Now, if you've paid attention to this channel, and if that person would have been paying attention to my reviews of the past 3 weeks, I have liked every single episode of this new season, and I've defended the shit out of Strange New Worlds multiple times on multiple channels, such as Admiral Teague, which I've spoke about before. You know, even Midnight's Edge. You know, I've tried to bring it up, and I believe I've said people just aren't interested in it. And these are people that used to be huge Star Trek fans, grew up with TNG, you know, and you see it on YouTube all the time. People that say, man, I grew up watching Star Trek, you know, and I watched Star Trek all the time, and I love Star Trek, and they've just ruined it. And I see those comments all the time, and I'm fine with you having that opinion, but the person that I'm talking about basically called those, and I brought that up as an example. Like, how am I not a fan when I'm not, you know, a lot of people, when Discovery came out, they watched like maybe the first couple of seasons and then dropped off. I stuck with it through the whole time, regardless of my bad opinion of the writing and how I felt, you know, that it wasn't living up to the legacy of Trek. And this person called those people whiny, and basically they're not fans, and I'm not a fan because I didn't like this, and I don't like, you know, the new Kurtzman Trek. And again, there's good episodes of Strange New Worlds that I think are on par with some of those other series that I've just mentioned. TNG, TOS, you know, Deep Space Nine, which is highly regarded. And this person, you know, tried to say that a lot of the fans are liking the past 8 years, and I'm like, no, a lot of the fans are not, because they're not fucking watching it. So you're full of shit, dude. And I'm gonna check real quick. I think I see people in the chat, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that's the type of attitude that people have, and that's the type of attitude that the producers have, like Kurtzman, that they attack the fans when things don't go right. And we saw the same thing with Star Wars. And Michelle Ferry's here. Hi, Michelle. So what happened is I'm having technical difficulties with Paramount Plus, and by the time I realized this, I wasn't able to watch the episode Clues. So I'm instead doing my review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds instead, and I will do Clues once I get this situation with Paramount Plus figured out. But I was just going over the teaser, and the teaser is basically them shitting on TOS and making fun of Shatner. And as I said, you know, I gave what I thought were fair reviews, kind reviews of the last 3 episodes, and because I didn't like this episode, I'm now no longer a fan to certain people, even though other people have criticized this episode too. But apparently they're on the right side of, or the left side, shall we say, and therefore their opinions are more valid than mine. So anyway, it's like a parody of the original series, and it's like a TV show, and they come in contact with this alien, which has like eyeballs for hands and eyeballs in their head too, and it looks like, one of those aliens you would see on the original series. It's like a foam looking, cheap looking alien, and like I said, this impression of Shatner, sorry, was way over the top, in my opinion, and I could not stand it, to be honest. And it just was ridiculous. And there's a line in this fake episode of this. I forget the name of the fake show. I should have wrote that down. The alien is trying to suck out the crew's brain cells, and I felt like I was losing brain cells watching this episode. Anyway, that's the end of the teaser. It's called the show's it's well, the ship is called the USS Avenger. So basically, Pike calls Leanne in, and Pike and Una are there, and they're testing what they call the rec room. And then I guess Pike calls it a rec room, Una calls it a holodeck. It's a holodeck episode. And they want her to test it, basically because she's been bored lately, and they want to give her something to do. And Pike says, have at it. Use your imagination, do what you want to do, stretch it to the limits. We want to test the limits of the holodeck, and can the ship still function while powering this holodeck. And she goes to visit Spock in his quarters, and they're like dancing. So this is picking up from the last episode where they were dancing, or practicing a dance at the beginning, and basically they're setting up a relationship between Spock and Leanne. And I guess the going theory is that whatever happens to her, if they split up, or she dies, or she erases herself from the timeline, because she's a relative descendant of Khan, by the way, if nobody knew that. So she almost has to erase herself from the timeline, because in Space Seed, Spock would know who Khan is, and in Space Seed he doesn't know who Khan is. So the going theory is that this is whatever happens to her. This is what causes Spock to seek, more like a Kolinahr, and purge himself of emotions and become the Spock that we know. That was my thought, and apparently other people thought that too. So then so she goes to the holodeck, and Spock goes with her, and he's there for a second and then leaves, because she wants to do this on her own, and she doesn't really need his help with anything right now. He goes, I guess, to help her, and Scotty's like working on it too. which, if you remember in TNG Relics, Scotty acts as if he's never seen a holodeck before. That's when he says, "No bloody A, B, C, or D." You know, he wants to see the original Enterprise, and you know, in the first season of TNG, they act like they've never seen a holodeck before. And then, before anybody points out, yes, in the animated series, they have a rec room that is essentially like a prototype of the holodeck, but it should be primitive. This is not primitive. It looks just like, if not better than, the TNG holodeck. So they can't even get that right. It's so frustrating. So, so Leon sets up is like a Nancy Drew type situation. There's like these children's books that she used to read as a kid, called Amelia Mon. So it's like a Nancy Drew, and there's a murder mystery, and so it's kind of like Data, and it's kind of like it reminded me a lot of like Knives Out or Glass Onion, Clue. So everybody's in the room together, and also reminds me of Deep Space Nine, Our Man Bashir, because all of the characters are being played by the cast, because they say, I guess the computer takes the best of whoever and throws it on the holodeck, and they don't have much. It's new, so they don't. That's all it's got to reference off of. And so there's a guy who was strangled, and it's like 1960s Hollywood. The Last Frontier, that's the name of the show. The Last Frontier is the name of this fictional show. And this is so it's very meta. So the cast of Strange New Worlds is playing the cast of The Last Frontier, with particularly Una is playing like a Lucille Ball type character, because they say that she helped produce the show. And then Anson Mount is playing like a really, really over the top, shitty version of Gene Roddenberry, I guess. Unless they're trying to say it was somebody else. But he's like the writer, and he's all pissed off because they don't follow his vision. And that sounds like a dig at the fans who've complained about Discovery and Strange New Worlds not following the vision of Gene Roddenberry, because they love to blame the fans for their failures. These are their failures. It's not our fault that you write bad crap that nobody wants to watch, and over probably half of the fan base has dropped off. That's your fault. And you know, and it pisses me off that I've defended this show, and then I have people coming at me saying I'm not a fan because I didn't like this one episode. And they pull this crap. And they're like, lighten up, you should just lighten up. It's a lighthearted episode, and you should, they're just being a parody, and dude, I mean, just chill. No. I'm sorry that you can't see this, but I see it for what it is. And no, I don't hate watch. I watch to do a review, to watch it and do a review. And if I like something, I say that I like something, and I've said that for past episodes. Um, anyway, um, Ortega's character is an actor in the show, and she said, what does she say? She something happens, and you know, she's questioning like, what do you think happened? And she's like, I'm an actor, not a doctor. Okay, so points for that. Points, even though I'm not a fan. Points for bringing back or turning it around. Actually, I'm a actor, not a doctor, which I talked about in I think my last episode of the Red Hour, where where in Voyager they used the I'm a doctor, not a something, you know. So points for that. Leanne. So at this point, Leanne does need Spock's help, and so Spock is there. So because of my issues with Paramount Plus, I didn't get to go back and rewatch this episode. And basically, what happened is something happened with my card. My debit card got compromised. So I have money to pay for the subscription. And yes, I could have pirated it, but I didn't have time. By the time I figured out what was going on, I didn't have time to do that. And I would not encourage pirating at all. Have to say that just in case. So I can't. So I don't want to give away anything yet, but Spock comes in to help. The ship is having power issues. In the side mission, the B plot, if you could even call it that, is they're observing a neutron star, and it's about to collapse. And the effect on the neutron star is great. It points for that, great. But it reminds me of an episode of Enterprise called Singularity, where they're near a black hole, and the effects on that was great. But the actual plot of the episode was kind of dumb, and I didn't like it. And same with this, and I would have rather have seen them do something with the black hole and some sort of more scientific situation. And same with this episode, is I could do away with the plot of the episode and do something with the neutron star. That's cool. I mean, it's science. As Jesse says, science, bitches. If you're gonna do a holodeck episode, make it interesting or stick with the science. I'm more of the. That's why I like it. Was it this episode? Or was it the last one? I think it was the last one. It reminded me of Interstellar. That's why I like Interstellar so much, because when I was watching Deep Space Nine and they would talk about the wormhole. First of all, the wormhole effect I always hated. It looks crappy, even for back then. And I never could really wrap my head around what a wormhole would look like, and B, what a black hole would look like. And obviously, you don't see the black hole; you see the accretion disk. And then when Interstellar came out, I was blown away, and I was like, because I'm a visual learner, not more so than like a book learner. Not that I don't read books or haven't read a book. Uh, so when Interstellar came out, I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now. I understand it now. And then I went out and bought the book by Kip Thorne, um, The Science of Interstellar, and it has diagrams in it, and I watched the behind the scenes of it, and just really got dug deep into that movie and really understood, like, the science and how it all works, uh, and the tesseract, and which is different from the Mind Stone from Avengers. But like, what a text, because people kept making fun of. I'm sorry for going on all these side tangents, but it's important. Hopefully, it helps you understand my thinking. Uh, People made fun of the ending where he's sliding the books and he's not doing over. But once you understand what a tesseract is in that mathematical sense, it it just kind of clicks. It makes more sense, and it helped me understand other Nolan movies, um, like Tenet, which I had to watch twice really to understand what was going on. I think Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, he's a big, he loves Interstellar too. And I've heard him say that he still doesn't understand Tenet, and he's watched it a bunch of times. And I'm like, you really need to read that book, and then maybe you'll get a better understanding. It looks like there's more people out in the chat. We have Gavin Gavin Blackbird. I despise this episode. I was only watching Stranger's Worlds to check canon damage, but I won't watch it again. It got downhill. There were more comedy episodes to come. I know. Like, dump the comedy episodes. Come on, people. I just got a subscription. Michelle Ferry. I just got a subscription to Paramount, so I'm still on season 1 of Strange New Worlds. I'm a bit disappointed in the show so far, but it's better than Discovery. Yeah, but I'm not a fan because I didn't like this episode. Sadly, this episode was just copied from. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. TNG Voyager episodes and the opening, like a captain from Captain Proton from. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about Captain Proton, but yeah, actually, Captain Proton is better, in my opinion. The Bride of Arachnia was a great episode. Okay. Ship's having power issues, and Scotty decides he's having problems keeping the holodeck safety protocols on, and they're malfunctioning. Shocker. And he knows about the malfunction, but is hiding it from Pike, and tells Uhura about it, and tells Uhura, like, how is there a way to, how can I, asking her, how can I contact inside the holodeck, how can I contact Leon, and I was like, that's kind of irresponsible. So basically, they have to play out the game, the mystery, in order to get to leave the holodeck. So, as I wrote elsewhere, I liked this episode better when it was called Elementary Dear Data, or Our Man Bashir. It's almost it's complete rip off of that. So I have notes. Yeah, like I said, neutron stars collapsing. Pike. Okay, I'll give him points for this. Pike. If you've seen me talk about Strange New Worlds in the past, I've complained about how when they have intercommunication in the ship, they don't press that wall button, and Pike doesn't press his button on his chair. And I specifically noticed this time that he presses the button on the chair to communicate to Scotty. Now, I don't remember if there's a button that Scotty pushes or not, but I'm gonna say I don't know. I'm gonna say I don't know, but they at least have the button on the chair, so the points for that. They need to get away from the star, and then okay, so Spock is shot, and it turns out that Spock is a hologram. And what it was is when Leon, when she went to program the holodeck, the simulation, she said, basically, like I said, in elementary Dear Data, give me an adversary that can, that it would for me to, hard for me to beat. So like Spock is like Moriarty in this sense, and it was just complete rip off of those episodes. And those episodes were way better. Una talks to Scotty about working alone, and she basically gives him a slap on the wrist and says, you don't have to. You can ask for help. You don't have to work alone. When the previous episode they disciplined Ortega. So which is it, guys? Did you get our complaints or not? I mean, it's so ridiculous. And then basically Leon doesn't recommend using the holodeck quite yet. So there's your answer there. It's kind of a cop out. And then Scotty recommends having an external power source for the holodeck, which they mentioned, which I think was mentioned before in one of the other lower decks or something. And because people always complain, well, how come Voyager was able to do so much holodeck stuff when they're out there? They're supposed to be conserving power and and yet there's a lot of complaints about Voyager and stuff like that. How many shuttles do they have? How many torpedoes do they have? So I'm being generous here. I'm going to say there were some things I liked about the episode. They do make a little bit of a speech about how Star Trek, or this show, in that world had inspired people to join, like people joining NASA and da 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 da. That was an enjoyable part of the episode, but it was very, very, very mid. I'm gonna say 5 out of 10, but really, really, it deserves lower for the way they treated Shatner and just the overtop crap and the lore breaking. But I'm going to be generous, even though I'm not a fan, because I didn't like this episode. So that's it. My battery's dying on my computer, and I really didn't have much else to say about it. And we're not so Gavin Blackburn, if you didn't hear, I've had problems with Paramount Plus, so that's why I'm not doing the Red Hour tonight. So I decided to do Strange New Worlds instead, and get that review out of the way. So I thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'm not choosing. So once I get this situation settled, hopefully I'll be back Sunday and I'll just do the episode that I was going to do today, which was Clues, TNG Clues. So we're still on TNG Clues. We're not moving from there. I'll be back Sunday. Hopefully we'll get this situation settled. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, even the people lurking. Michelle Ferry, I want to thank, and Gavin Blackburn, I want to thank. The Dead Man. And that's been my review of Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episode 4, A Space Adventure Time. Have a good night, everyone, and I will see you next time.